So that is all set and ready to go. And it looks like all of our wonderful guests are here and ready to chat. So thank you so much. And we will get right on into our session for today. So perfect. We just want to start with some brief introductions before we go into kind of the meat and potatoes of what we'll be talking about and go over our agenda. So I've been talking with a lot of y'all who are on this call. So my name is Peyton Richmond. I'm the recruitment and marketing specialist for our executive MHA program with a couple other degree programs within our department here at UW. But that is it for me. So I will just go chronologically. I don't know if it's chronologically, but we'll just go in order of the bullet points. So we'll start with Neil. If you just want to give a brief introduction, say hi, that'd be great. And then we'll go on to Joel, etc.
Good afternoon. I'm Neil Siegel. I direct the EMHA and the MHA programs here at the University of Washington. I'm also an associate professor in the Department of Health Systems and Population Health and the Austin Ross Endowed Chair in Health Administration. Yeah, I'm really excited to see so many of you interested in our programs. Glad to chat with you more about what makes us potentially that right next step in your career journey. And on that note, I will pass it to Joel, our Senior Associate Director for Curriculum Management.
Thank you, Neil. Joel, have been with the program quite a while, about 14 years or so. I was an instructional designer before moving to Seattle and found a kind of flex role within higher education that allowed me to continue that while sort of developing into accreditation support and competency sort of development, for health administration degrees. So with that, I will pass it on to Linda Marzano.
Hello, welcome everyone. Glad to see you. My name is Linda Marzano. I'm the practitioner in residence, and I'm also a clinical associate professor. I teach the capstone seminar as well as population health. I've been with the program about 5 years. I've been in healthcare for over 30 years and started out as a registered nurse and then held various executive level roles throughout the state of Washington and also on the East Coast. But I'm excited to share information about our excellent program with you and get to meet you all online. Next, I'll share it with Bob.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Linda. I'm Bob Malty. I'm on the faculty here. I've been, this is my 6th year of teaching with the program, and I joined the program in 2018 following a career as long as Linda's, 40-year career in healthcare. And for those of you that are in familiar with the Seattle area, I was the CEO for Evergreen Health over in Kirkland from 2010 to 2018, and took the opportunity in 2018 to pursue teaching, and have the pleasure of having Chelsea and Jason, who you'll get a chance to meet in a second, in classes I teach, which are about management, leadership, and critical thinking for the executive MHAs. I'll also mention, if you see me waving to my colleague here, I have a class to go to at 12:30, so I'll be signing off a little bit earlier from my colleagues, so I apologize that I won't be here for the whole thing.
Yeah, no worries, Bob. Before Steve, you go in, since you are heading out early, I just want to take this opportunity just to have you share just a little bit more. One time we were chatting, and can you just tell us a little bit more, like, what does it mean to you to like be effective? What like really like hits that like heartstring? Like what really makes you so excited to teach, and how what's that impact like for the students? I know you like said it really eloquently the other day when we were chatting. So you just want to share a little bit about that, like what that teaching means to you.
Sure. Well, I read a quote. I actually shared it with Chelsea a couple weeks ago that to teach is to learn twice. And it's the honor of teaching. What I love about teaching is that I get a chance to give back to the profession that I've been involved in for 40 years, and get a chance to share those experiences, but also bring in the academic portion of it and the rigor portion of it. So what I love about teaching is I learn as much as I hopefully share and facilitate the learning of our executive MHA students. Having the opportunity to teach both in the in-residence and the executive MHA program, it's fun to teach in both. What is especially fun about the executive MHAs is all of our students are bringing real-world experiences, more than our in-residence students have. They have some, but not as much as, say, Chelsea and Jason have. And so the teaching style differs a little bit in that, because we're able to bring their experiences, their challenges into the classroom, and I use case studies, and we use discussions and real world kind of situations, guest speakers, to facilitate that learning. So it's a privilege to teach, and it's a joy to teach. Hopefully that responded to your question, Peyton.
Yes, that was perfect, and that's exactly what I was going for. So thank you, and thanks for letting me put you on the spot like that. So
Okay.
that was perfect. Thank you, Bob. But yeah, on to Steve.
Let's see. Should we pass on to Steve then? As next.
Yep. Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to meet you, and I'm glad that you're here. I am the advisor for the EMHA program, and I hope to be hanging out with you for the next couple of years. Quick little bio on my end. I've been managing and advising graduate programs at UW for over 20 years in the School of Medicine and the School of Public Health. I'm also a parent of 2 college students and understand the financial commitment you are making on a personal basis. Thankfully, our minivan is paid off, so the financial pain is not as bad. But looking forward to meeting you and answering any questions you may have at the conclusion of this. Oh, and let me throw it to 2 of my favorite current EMHA students. We have a second year and a first year to provide those different perspectives. I'll send it to the grizzled veteran, Chelsea Berenson, first.
Thanks, Steve. Hi, everybody. I'm Chelsea. I'm a second year EMHA student, so looking forward to graduating this summer. But the biggest thing that I want to point out is that even though I'm graduating from the moment I was accepted into the program and started my journey with getting set up to start that first quarter, I was just welcomed with a big hug. And that has only grown and been almost like a tighter bear squeeze hug as I've carried on in this journey. And I expect that to just continue throughout my career and my life. And that's just been part of the most beautiful experience about being part of University of Washington's EMHA program. I'm currently the district manager of operations for North Washington District 2 at Frontier Dermatology. So I have 5 clinics right now that I am running, and I'm excited to see where my career leads me. Any questions that you have, every question's a great question, and ask away. I'm going to pass it over to Jason.
Thank you, Chelsea. Hello, everybody. I'm Jason Rubin. I am a first-year EMHA student. I come to this program actually from the clinical world. I was actually pursuing my clinical degree in social work and was actually going to go to the School of Social Work here at the UW. But after some discussions with my clinical advisors, they thought the EMHA program might be better. And I am so grateful for it because not only have I met wonderful staff like Steve and Bob and all of the professors that we've had. But also I would like to point out the cohorts. It's a cohort style, so you will be in a group of people, and from day one, we just started connecting, and now it's just like a little family. And I think that it's important to note that in this program, and obviously we can ask questions and answer questions about this later, but I just want to point out that the importance of understanding that not only are you gaining a wonderful insight into the educational value of this program, but the networking and the connections you make is invaluable. So I'll leave the rest for you to ask, but I'm glad to be here, and I'm very, very grateful to be in this program.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jason and Chelsea. But yeah, wonderful. So with that, we're going to go kind of into our actual presentation. We're going to give a brief overview of the program, talk about admissions, the financial aid opportunities and costs as well, and then opportunities to learn more. I'm going to hand it over to my colleagues for this because typically I chat a lot during these info sessions, but we're going to kind of change it up for today. So as the slides change, it'll note who will be presenting for each slide. So they'll get to talk for their respective areas. And at the end is where we will have our faculty and student shine for the Q&A session. So we are going to keep this presentation fairly brief and really to the point, while still getting all the main highlights. So that way, again, we have plenty of time to hear from faculty and students and ask those direct questions as well. And I also pulled up the questions that were asked when folks registered for this session as well. So I have those prepared. But feel free as we're going on through the presentation to put any questions in the chat as well if those come to mind. So, but yeah, like I said, we'll leave the end for Q&A, but I will hand it off to Neil, who will begin our program overview.
Thank you, Peyton. And as Peyton mentioned, especially for those of you who have attended one of these previously, our format's going to be a little bit different, largely because we have a number of guests representing all aspects of our program, and I thought it would be actually time better spent for us to have a dialogue about how this program has impacted our various constituents. And I represent the more traditional faculty side. Linda and Bob represent the like very experienced practitioner side, and it's one of the things that we knit very well together. And in fact, it was the founding ethos of our program in the late 90s, when I was still an undergraduate at UCLA. There was it was observed that there was a different way, that there was a different model for folks who were still in the early part of their careers, in the middle of their careers, but either put in situations intentionally or to manage people, to manage organizations, to manage divisions. And so that was the genesis of our program. Our MHA programs, the traditional full-time programs, actually date back to 1970 when they were founded, and we graduated our first MHA class in 1973. So we're one of the oldest MHA programs, certainly in the Western United States. We have the longest consistent accreditation by our academic accreditor, the Commission on Accreditation Healthcare Management Education, CAME, of any program in the Western United States, and we are the only program in the country to have been granted the longest possible renewal at every CAME renewal since our inception, which is, I can think of no better signal of quality for our curriculum than that. And CAME accredits both the executive curriculum and the in-person curriculum. We're also, interestingly, accredited by the Council on Education for Public Health, because we're a program housed in a school of public health. And that's another distinguishing factor. We're one of the few dual CAME and CEEF accredited MHA programs in the country. I mentioned our program sits in the School of Public Health, and we have a strong relationship with our faculty are housed in the Department of Health Systems and Population Health, though our programs housed in the Dean's Office. We are one of the best public universities in the country. We're the highest ranked MHA program on the West Coast. All of that, I think, as a traditional academic, is a strong signal of quality. One of the things I didn't mention about my background is I actually have a degree from, I wouldn't say a competitor, but certainly a partner. My master's in public health and healthcare management is from UCLA. And I started my teaching career teaching in the executive program at UCLA. And so having been around the block, I feel very confident that what we deliver is unparalleled with respect to both pedagogy, how we teach and what we teach, and the experiences that we provide for our students. Next slide, please. So those of you who have, yes, who have already applied or read our materials know we aim our program at mid-career students with an average of, plus or minus 6 to 10 years of professional experience. Is that a hard and fast rule? No. We've had students with slightly less experience who have succeeded tremendously in our programs, largely because, they had either a set of clinical healthcare life experiences that predispose them to success in our programs, and certainly we've had historically students with much more experience than that. But what sets us a bit apart is we are not aimed at somebody who's a year or two out of undergraduate. With that said, if you are working full-time as a clinician and you're a couple of years out and have questions about whether we're the right fit curricularly or otherwise, certainly feel free to reach out to me or Joel or Steve or Peyton, and we're glad to talk to you about how we see the program intersecting with your interests. So our foundation as a program, because of that, is on executive management and transformational leadership. And so some of what Bob described before he had to run off to teach, I think is at the core of that. When I think about what we do here, I think we make leaders here. Those of you who are in the midpoint of your career or further along in your career journey, I'm sure have been put in situations when you are asked to lead. Having worked with a lot of CEOs and studied healthcare delivery and health administration, sort of a running joke is that there certainly are excellent division chiefs, department heads, CEOs, CMOs who have clinical credentials, but many of them are good leaders by accident. And it's because in your clinical journey, you're taught a different sort of leadership. You're taught a different sort of management. And so where we, I think, shine is in helping folks who have either clinical experiences or administrative experiences really develop leadership capacity over 2 years. And by the time you're done with the program, I'm very confident that you will be in a position to lead, your divisions, work your way up to leading organizations. And we've had EMHA students in our programs in the past go on to be C-suite executives at healthcare organizations, whether it's CMO, CEO, chief nursing officer, CFO. And so we accelerate you on that career journey. We also, though, are truly grounded in the principles of population health. One of the reasons that I highlighted our CEIF accreditation is because unlike a traditional management program, you'll also learn a lot about the healthcare delivery system. And so what sets us apart from, for instance, an executive MBA, which my sister, who's a physician, earned, is we ensure that you have sufficient depth and grounding in the core principles of population health. And our curriculum spans the gamut from business to policy to ethics, things like information systems and information management. I teach a class in health informatics, strategic planning, finance, and all of these topics through the healthcare lens. And of course, glad to talk more about the program and the curriculum, but even more qualified than me to talk about curriculum is Joel Felix, our Senior Associate Director for Curriculum Management. And so I'm glad to hand it over to Joel now.
Thanks, Neil. I'm going to forward a slide here. We got a little section break. Yeah, so a 69 credit 2-year part-time program. Part-time is a reference to an internal logic at the UW, which means below a certain threshold number of credits per quarter. And yes, our program is, as Jason pointed out, as Chelsea referred to, is really reliant on the cohort model. When I came here, it was told, and it was a tale that often sort of developed as pedagogy followed the practice of the business, right? So what that meant is that, we were really all in on team-based learning, and what team-based learning could mean in the classroom should look like what it means in the field of practice. So healthcare being so driven by teams of practitioners, clinicians, administrators across, finance to everything. The idea was to sort of model that into sort of learning groups. The learning groups, just so you know, are sort of sorted algorithmically to have the widest range of diversity of perspective, disciplinary training, years of experience, and every other category that you might imagine. It all goes into a tumbler and it comes out. And we look at that as the start point for how the teams are working. I'll add to that some of your faculty are actually currently in practice as consultants on team-based effectiveness. So you might have a course from an individual instructor who in the other part of their lives maintains a current consulting practice doing leadership and team development at organizations, and perhaps even yours. So there's a weird kind of relevance to the moments that we're working on in terms of talking about how effectively our teams work together in the classroom to what actually be a dialogue that you're having within your organization and or your own team. So that's kind of an interesting synergy. The classes are fixed in the sense that there are no electives. So it was designed as a generalist curriculum that allows for people from different disciplines to come in and sort of make up the other component or 3/4 of their sort of healthcare portfolio of experiences and knowledge and skills. So if a surgeon comes in, the surgeon tends to say, okay, I need to develop in the area of finance. And then the finance person comes in and that person needs to develop in the area of working with clinicians. Friday and Saturday are the live sessions, and in the high flex model, we refer to that as really like it's a timestamp. So they're meeting at 8 a.m. and ending at 5 p.m. Now, the mode of attendance to that, is up to the individual student. We don't demand that they be either in person or online. The individual student has a kind of radical freedom to determine their mode of attendance. I'll let Chelsea and Jason talk a little bit more about what that means in particular for them, or what that has meant for them in particular as individual students. But we'll cram through these slides to say that there are these Tuesday evening webinars which supplement the Friday and Saturday once a month. Those webinars are allow us to sort of iterate the learning over the 10 weeks of time in a sort of structured way, so that conversations in the classroom lead to conversations the following week and the week after, before the next onsite. So that piece of having a contemporary or contemporaneous weekly sessions was important to ensuring that we maintain a workflow that makes sense to the students, as well as a learning scaffold that makes sense to the students. And I'll say that this is to break from the old school executive style education, where, if you took an EMHA in the late 80s, you probably flew to a location and were there for 3 days, maybe 6 times, and then you had a master's degree. So what that allowed for is very busy people to say, I'm going to partition this out of my life, and I'm going to make that commitment to that experience. But it also meant that they were not necessarily doing a lot of the work in between, right? So it was kind of like, let's arrive and get it done. So I think one of the measures of quality for us is that, we're not in that mode, and we are distributed as we can distribute our learning and our effort best across 10 weeks each time. So for international students, F1 and J1 visas are not eligible for this program. I would let the experts speak to that. My understanding is that it has to do with literally being able to guarantee that they are on the campus or something like this. I'll leave that to the experts. Sorry. So a little more about HighFlex. There's moving down to the second bullet, we have that this is an option for you. We have had students who have gone to the classes in person very rarely, and are comfortable with their decision to participate via, in our case, we use Teams, a live synchronous Teams meeting within a classroom, where we're working hard to make sure that lines of sight are good and that the audio is good. It's critical measure of quality for us is to make sure that we provide the best possible experience to the online students, because we have made the promise that that experience is going to be as good as coming in person. I could say a lot about that, but I don't want to take too much time. The classes are meeting in Bellevue at the UW's Global Innovation Exchange. It's the name of the building. Also findable by calling it the Steve Ballmer Building. It's in the Spring District in Bellevue, which is just slightly outside of downtown. A lot of you would probably know it as kind of like the Facebook, the Facebook collective, because the Facebook, I think, was sort of foundational in building out this sort of set of buildings in that particular area in Bellevue. I'll just say that it's gotten more interesting in the last several years as more stores open up and more restaurants open up around there. There's the evening webinars. And the only piece that we kind of like thread the needle on is that we do strongly encourage people to show up for orientation and for capstone, because that tends to be a collective experience in a way that is meaningfully different than a given class session. So we strongly encourage folks to be in person if they can be for those experiences, and if they can't be, then we ensure that they have the best experience they could have. I don't see if I have control of these slides anymore. I do.
Anyways,
Oh,
I got it. There we go. No, no worries.
Peyton and I are both hitting the click button at the same time, so it's jumping to and coming back. It's my fault. Can we go forward one to curriculum highlights? Peyton. Neil mentioned leadership development. There's an important part of this. We're really coalescing around what it means to be a leader in a time of transition and change. Obviously, there's a really, really big set of changes that are happening and have been happening, but some of our faculty are kind of looking at it in terms of describing the joy of leadership in a moment of transition. And so there's a lot going on, and a lot of it is difficult. So what can we do in our education to bring values to someone where they say, you know, this is my privilege to be a leader in this place, and I'm going to practice joy and experience joy from being a leader in this place at this time. And so, you know, we're working on that conversation in terms of all that we do, whether it's, you know, a case presentation or you know, a financial analysis that has, you know, recommendations to a real company. You know, like, so as you work as a sort of consultant to a real maybe your organization, but maybe someone in your organization has a good contact in another organization, and they say, yeah, sure, you know, you can do this work with our data set and make recommendations based on these conditions, then you bring a certain joy to that experience. And so, yeah, it's a really interesting component of looking at the affective and the sort of the values-based part of what leadership means. I've said a little bit about experiential learning and integrative research. We can talk more about that. The capstone is essentially the culmination of the program curriculum. We do an endpoint assessment of our competency development through your capstone and through supplemental cases so that we can, you know, so that we can get feedback on how well you learned, because that helps us understand what we need to change in the future. You know, if we need to do improvements in the finance area, we need to do improvements in the data analytics area, we'll know from working with you guys to assess your competency development over time. All right. I think those were several slides. That might be enough for the curriculum.
Yep, that was it. And so, but yeah, and then one more time, sorry to jump in right before you, Steve, because on that last slide, we mentioned our wonderful practitioner in residence. Linda, do you want to share just a little bit about your role really briefly and just, you know, what that means, how that supports students, and, you know, what that entails?
Great. Thank you, Peyton. Yes. My role in practitioner in residence is I work closely with the professional development team to look at opportunities of where we can bring outside professionals that are experts in the industry to work on development opportunities that the students would like to improve upon. And it's usually things like maybe a salary negotiation or job search. But it's also you know, developing those soft skills and giving you an opportunity to broaden your network. Being in the EMHA program, many of you already have a broad network, but it's time to step it up a little bit and be able to broaden your network in industries maybe outside of areas that you're experienced in. And it's also my opportunity to work with organizations that we've partnered with over the years and new organizations in areas of a fellowship or an internship over the summer, but also areas that if you wanted to participate in a capstone outside of your organization in a new industry that you're somewhat interested in, it could be in tech, or it could be in venture capital, or it could be, if you're in a clinic, it could be in a hospital. So I try and establish new relationships with organizations that will partner with us. I also work closely with the Washington chapter of the American College of Healthcare Executives on initiatives to help bolster the student experience, not only in the state of Washington, but across other states, and look at different opportunities that you would like to pursue outside of the state of Washington or within the state of Washington. And it's really an opportunity for me to get to know you in a different way than just teaching in the classroom, and working on professional development and mentoring and getting you access to professional mentors outside of the school program here at UW, so that if you would like to establish a mentor for your career growth or your career journey, whether you want to enter the C-suite or have another significant role in another organization, I find external mentors for you that you could have during the program or and throughout your career. Some of them have had very robust relationships that have lasted many years, that have helped them traverse through the changing dynamic in healthcare, and also thinking about, what do you want to do next in your career, and help you really maneuver those strategies as you move forward. So I'm excited to talk with any of you further, if you'd like to, after this session, about career opportunities or career growth after you have your MHA. As I said earlier, I started as a registered nurse. I did end up going back for my MHA and ended up in the C-suite, which was a very wonderful career opportunity. But also, I think that there's a lot of opportunities given the changing landscape of healthcare, which is always changing, but I think our challenges are a little bit different around now, and we can help you maneuver those challenges. And that's my role.
Wonderful. Perfect. Thank you. And on to that, we will go to Steve. So thank you.
Thank you, Peyton. So in addition to all the information about my role, and as noted on the bulleted points there, I just wanted to say that, as a point of emphasis, that one of my primary functions in that role is to help connect and facilitate the collective resources and expertise of our faculty, alumni, staff, and healthcare industry partners to support you during your academic and career-related goals. And as part of that commitment, I work closely with the SPH Career Services team to create and promote career development and professional skills programming. In fact, April is SPH Career Month, with ongoing programming ranging from online and in-person career fairs, alumni panels, mock interviews, resume reviews, professional development, skills development program, and programming. I will put in the chat a link where you can find out more about the SPH Career Months and get a better sense of the type of support programming that we do provide throughout not just April, but the entire year. I also think it's worth mentioning our close partnership with UW Career and Internship Center, and the myriad of professional development resources and career services programming that they provide and that students need. It's been really interesting to see the role of AI in some of those resources. And I'll put a link into the Career Center website, and you can get a better sense of some of those paid or their free subscription services that are available to you as a student. And I would just add that I'm a huge fan of both the SPH Career Services team, but also the UW Career Center and its staff. So happy to talk more either offline or during the Q&A.
Thank you. And with that, we'll hand it back to Neil to talk about admissions. Excellent.
Thank you, Peyton. And yeah, so just to wrap up our discussion, as any of you who started your application know, you must have a bachelor's degree from a U.S. university or an equivalent foreign institution. We find it most helpful that you have about 6 years of professional experience in the field of health services or healthcare services or a related field. There's a question in the chat that I got earlier from Judy. Judy, thank you, about clinical experience and how clinical experience factors into this. And our program is actually designed for folks who have a sort of robust set of clinical experiences and an understanding of a clinical delivery system, but may just be embarking on their management or leadership career. And so, if you have 6 years of experience as a clinician, this is exactly the right program for you to build skills and competencies in leadership and management that build on top of that robust set of experiences and the understanding that you have of the delivery system. And then a university requirement, University of Washington requirement, since this is an accredited graduate program, is that you have a minimum 3.0 GPA from the institution that awarded your bachelor's degree. or an equivalent. Now, how relevant is your undergraduate experience at this point? I studied philosophy when I was an undergrad. Is it related to what I'm doing today? I like to think so, but not necessarily so directly. And so there is a process if you fall just just under. Certainly there is a waiver process, and so don't let that GPA requirement be a deterrent. Feel free to reach out to me and to Peyton, and we're glad to talk to you about that. I think the biggest determinant of your success in this program is actually the professional experience that you have in different aspects of the delivery system. And so not everyone comes in as a clinician. In fact, Chelsea and Jason can attest to that. They're both succeeding, thriving in our programs, but have really different experiences than some of their classmates. Because we are, again, an accredited graduate program, we have the traditional nominal application fee. The university charges about $90. We ask your unofficial transcripts from each college and university where you earned a degree, a resume, or a CV. There are written statements that are part of the application. And again, those of you who started or completed the application know all about those, and then 3 letters of recommendation. Importantly, and this is over the past few years, something that's been very helpful in our programs. We have stopped requiring, we do not require the GRE. But if English is not your native language or you've earned a degree from a foreign institution, we do ask that you have proof of English proficiency. And there's a University of Washington policy about that. It's never been an obstacle for applicants to our program. Finally, importantly, we project our tuition to stay around plus or minus, well, likely plus, about $1,000 per credit hour. And we're a 69 credit program bundled with fees, brings our tuition to just north of $70,000 for the 2-year experience. Now, a word of caution, there's an expectation in higher education that fees will increase slightly. We because we're able to manage costs on the delivery side, don't see a tuition increase at the same rate as traditional programs on campus do. But certainly you can anticipate that the cost per credit will increase by about $10 plus or minus every year. And if you are admitted and accept our offer, the university asks for a $250 enrollment confirmation deposit. This is a standard across programs. And we apply that deposit to your first quarter tuition. And importantly, I think as many of you know, our application deadline is rapidly approaching May 1st. And so if you are in process or you have questions, certainly we're glad to chat with you more now about whether this is the right next career step for you. If it's going to take you a little bit longer to complete your application materials, we can chat about how to accommodate that so you don't have to delay and wait for next year's admission cycle. We would love to have you join this year and get a jump start on that next stage in your career journey. And finally, for those of you who might be interested or for whom it might be helpful, we're glad to have you to drop in either in person or virtually to observe a class. We can connect you with current students, or Chelsea or Jason or others. We can connect you with faculty in the programs or alums of our program, so you can get a better sense as to whether this is the right next step for you. And with that said, I am glad to reserve our final 20 minutes for questions from you all. And Peyton will email these slides out.
Yeah, and I stopped sharing so that way we can just see each other's faces for the rest of this part in session. And like I said, I compiled some questions that were submitted with the meeting requests, not requests, the registration for today's event. So I'm gonna go right over to Chelsea and Jason because you're patiently waiting for your turn to share a little bit more. One of the main questions that I saw asked a couple times and was just, can you share a little bit about, your professional and educational background before joining and why did you apply? So I know you touched on it, but kind of like intertwine it with what were those experiences you were having both professionally and educationally, and how does it encourage you to make or influence you to make this your next step? And either of you can answer first, whatever you please or prefer.
Thanks, Peyton. I'll pass it over to Jason.
I was going to defer to you because you're the second year, but I will go ahead. Seniority, right? So, okay, that's a great question. And it's interesting because, like I had mentioned in my intro, I was actually pursuing a graduate degree in social work. I was going to pursue my licensure in as a clinician and work in mental and behavioral health and substance use disorder. What happened was, in working with people that are clinicians, especially mental health, know that we all have our supervisors who kind of we help support each other and vent and just kind of be able to maintain the daily work that goes with that field. And one of my supervisors, I was talking about graduate school, and she was like, "Well, you could do that, or because I'm always talking about wanting to be part of helping change healthcare." She thought maybe the MHA program would be better because not only is it more of a broad um, approach to healthcare and how it functions and its leadership and its management and its finance, but it also opens more doors when it comes to career opportunities. So I took that road and I applied instead of the school of social work, I applied here to all of those you see before you. I do have an undergraduate in behavioral health. Coming out of school, I went to work for a population health management company nationwide. And now I am currently back in the mental and behavioral health space. So with my healthcare experience, and also working for the Blue Cross here in Washington, so I have a kind of a breadth of work in the healthcare. It really lent to when I applied for the program, an understanding of kind of what I wanted to get out of it. And I felt like this really was a good landing spot. So that experience comes in handy when you're in classes. I won't go too far into that, but yeah, just a little history about how I got here and the kind of the conversations that took place to lead me to apply. So I will pass it off back to Chelsea.
Thanks, Jason. It's fun to hear that about your journey. When I was 16, my first job, I was a certified nursing assistant. And over the years, I found myself as a medical assistant, a surgical tech assisting a surgeon, and then a hemodialysis technician. So a lot of clinical support staff roles. That kind of led me on a journey of, I thought that I wanted to continue patient care, but at a more elevated level. So I was actually a pre-physician assistant student. And I spent a couple years shadowing a lot of different, both MD, medical doctors and advanced practice providers, different nurse practitioners and physician assistants in different specialties. And I would always ask them, what are the pros and cons of your job? And I would always get the one con is we don't understand administration. Kind of as my career continued while I was working and needed to make money, I always found myself when I was in those clinical support roles going into a supervisor or a manager level, just kind of organically. And I realized I was at this crossroads that, the patient care and that clinical side, I really enjoy caring for people. I nerd out over the science. But really, you focus on that one patient in front of you, whereas in healthcare administration, you have this beautiful opportunity, which both are great. But I really enjoy the opportunity to treat an entire population. And I see the population not just as the community that I live in of our patient population, but I also see it as our workforce. The workforce is part of the population that we care for. And I just, that's ultimately what led me into health administration and getting my degree. I do want to say that even though I always found myself moving into like my last role before I joined this program, I was just a medical practice manager of a single private equity practice for a facial plastic and reconstructive surgeon, actually. In between that time that I quit that job and joined this program, there was about a 6-year gap where I adopted 2 beautiful babies. And during that time, I had taken that time off of work and took that time to really understand that this is the route that I wanted to go. But I will say last summer when I went back to work, I wouldn't have been given the opportunity that I have now. I mentioned that I'm a district manager of multi-site. And actually, the person that interviewed me graduated from this very program, actually the in-residence MHA program at the University of Washington in the early 90s. And it was a woman, and she said, "I see you. Somebody gave me an opportunity, and I see you, and you remind me of myself, and let's do this." And so I've been doing what I'm doing this last year, and I know that, I graduate this summer, and I'll have that MHA behind my name. And Joel had touched on, you have the opportunity to turn data into purposeful real-world solutions. So I really was empowered as I learned that, as I journeyed through the curriculum here. Linda mentioned all of the experts in the industry and kind of that broad network that you all of a sudden have access to the minute that you're accepted to this program. I mean, it started this summer before I even had my first quarter, where I mentioned I felt that big hug. All of these things have helped me, and I know that post-graduation, the difference between, I know Joel or Neil was mentioning about, we really build population health leaders in this program. And a great thing that I actually just heard last night, I was listening, I was in on Bob's class who had to jump off the call. There was some executives on the call and some C-suite recruiters. They made a statement that managing front lines to managing leaders are two different avenues. And that's kind of a good way to think about it. And if I didn't do this program, I wouldn't be able to take that next step. So happy to answer any other questions, but I have a 5 and an 8-year-old at home, and I have a husband that has needed specific medical care over this past year. And the high flex model and the support of my cohort, my colleagues, as well as the faculty that you see here is how I've been able to be successful.
Thank you, Chelsea. And then thank you for sharing that last part too about the flexibility, and that kind of segues into another question that we got through chat as well as through registration. Is just, what's it like balancing the workload? So having a full-time role or a part-time role and an additional role, what's that like? What are those resources to help? Share your experience, because that's definitely something that's on prospective students' mind is, how do I manage this workload with a full-time role or a new role I'll be joining, things like that?
Yeah, I'll jump in on this one. So when you first start, you try to kind of get a feel as to what the rhythm of the curriculum is going to be like, right? So you have your work life, you have your family life, and they prepare you for this. The program does. They let you know like kind of what you can expect and to kind of ease into it and say it's just 2 years of your life. It'll be over before you know it. And I gotta say, being on the brink of almost halfway through the program, it does go by fast, very fast. But the one nice thing is that they understand that we're all working professionals, that we have families, and they want us to embrace that. That's part of our lives. So the curriculum isn't overbearing in that regard. It is difficult work. It is a graduate program, which is why we all signed up for it, right? That's what we're looking for. But they allow you to balance your life, your work. They know that that's important. And also the way that they set up the cohorts, you have like you're put into groups. At least with my cohort, we have 2 separate groups or 3 separate groups. And so there are projects that you do together. So it is also supported in a way where it's like, yes, there's individual assignments and things that you do on your own, but there's also some larger projects that you get to work on with your cohort. And so you don't feel necessarily so overburdened when it comes to like, oh my goodness, I have this huge essay that I have to do, but I'm also working until 7 o'clock tonight and I have a baby, those things are manageable. So I guess in short, I would say that it's doable. If it was something, if this is the one thing that's kind of holding you back, I would say you can let that go, because the program and your cohort will work with you to ensure your success.
Yeah, and I commend everything that Jason just said. Exactly. We're put on teams, and the teams that I've been on have been very dynamic, which has really enriched the experience. But I think with every assignment or project that you're put on, you have an opportunity to decide if you want to take a different aspect of a project on, an area that maybe you're not as strong in, or maybe you don't take that piece for that specific project because, as we all know, we're human beings and seasonality occurs, right? So when my husband had a major surgery, I wasn't about to take on something that, you know, wasn't my biggest strength. And I just put it to the side that I got through that, and we passed as a team. But I know, you know, post-grad, when I have a little bit more time on my hands, I want to revisit some of those categories. But that's just kind of a self-reflection thing. It's not a piece of if you're going to succeed in the program or not. I also want to say that you're going to get the most from this program if you make the decision to be as vulnerable as you can be with yourself, and put in the work to really really work and apply basically use the energy in those areas. And you can do it strategically based on what the demands of your life are and kind of navigate it as you go. That's my biggest piece of advice, is if you make that decision that, yeah, I want to do this, I want to become a leader, and these are some areas I recognize now, and maybe along the way some others will come to light, and you have this individuality that you get to kind of navigate it and course it the way that works for your lifestyle.
Thank you. Yeah, so let's see if we have anything else. So I saw there was a chat just about disability support, learning disability support, and Steve was able to provide a really great resource. Is there anything else you want to share about that? Steve or anybody else who has experience with that and supporting our students? Yeah, or Neil.
I'll share something, and maybe Joel will chime in. I will say one of the virtues of HyFlex. So I experience pretty significant hearing loss, and so one of the things that's frequently helpful for me, and in fact, I was playing around with this last time I was in the HyFlex classroom, is the real-time transcription of discussions, and certainly the ability to go back and to review recordings as well because of the HyFlex model. Something that I try to do in my in-person classes for the most part, but as the default in our HyFlex classes, is that there are additional materials available to reinforce because students enter the classroom with different learning styles. And as someone who returned to the classroom after a multi-year break myself, you know, I worked in research for 6 years before going back and starting my PhD. It was an adjustment for me to get back in the classroom, and so it was helpful as I transitioned back into student life to be able to lean on some of the assistive technologies. And this was, you know, more than a decade ago at Berkeley. Things have gotten much, much better. But Joel, is there anything you want to say as well about like
Yeah. Yeah, it's worth mentioning definitely that we have a staff member in each live setting. So what that means is that there's a facilitator, and the facilitator is available for any one-to-one sort of problem solving that an individual might have due to technology. So let's just say I'm calling in from, you know, home, but, you know, I'm hearing an echo or something like this. And so, you know, rather than have that person have you know, a bad experience for the course of, you know, multiple hours, you know, our commitment is to have a facilitator there to work with them one-to-one to try to problem solve anything that comes up. So those pieces, I would just say, are kind of not front and center on our website or in our marketing, but you know, it's an important part of our commitment is to have some real-time assistance from someone other than the instructor, so that they are focusing exactly on their learning moments. So yeah, there's a facilitator in the room that might help as well.
Thank you. And so I had another question prepared, unless folks have something else. Always feel free to put something in the chat or just come off of mute or raise your hand. But I'd love to hear just a little brief. Oh, someone's in the chat. Oh, thank you. You're very welcome. So Linda, I'm going to ask you a brief question. So since a lot of our students are working while they're in the program and learning, so they get to often, you know, take what they're learning in the program and apply it right away. What are some of those topics in like the courses you teach, either through the capstone as well, that you see or hear feedback from students like, oh, I was able to apply this right away? And Jason and Chelsea, you're welcome to answer that as well after, but I just wanted to hear some insight from Linda on that too.
Well, I think in the population, I'll use population health as an example. When we go through alternative payment models and way organizations are paid, I think many of the students can take that knowledge back to them and understand their financials a little bit differently than they did before. And when they're thinking about implementing new programs, I think they have a clearer understanding of how to use that information to make changes to existing programs or develop new programs in order to have a more successful implementation. We also talk about ways that, for example, gaps in care, where patients may fall through the cracks within a medical group or a healthcare organization or a public health department, and they can apply some of those strategies and principles in their own work to help to improve the populations that they're currently working with. I think those are two examples that quickly come to mind.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback off that, there's a nice variation in the courses that we're like, finance is a big one that is important because it's not something a lot of people necessarily that don't have financial backgrounds would, or analytics would have really understood or have experience with. So like I know that a majority of my cohort, the finance portion of it is very instructive. Also, the majority of the courses, I think all of them are intertwined, are interweaved with aspects of leadership and management, obviously. And it was mentioned earlier, but the professors are all very much engaged and connected to the healthcare industry, whether it's currently with positions they hold, or like Bob was saying, he was the CEO of Evergreen Health. So his network is vast, as you will find out in his courses, because he connects you with people you never thought you would meet. So yeah, there is a nice variation of everything that you would need to be successful in healthcare leadership. So, but yeah, that's that.
Yeah, no, those are great call outs. I'll also add that there's little pearls that I've grabbed onto, for the areas that I currently navigate in my own job. One is recruitment. I've learned that you can't teach motivations and values to anyone, but you can teach other things. And one of our professors told me that, and he's in healthcare consulting. And I've had great success with recruitment. It's just one little nugget, these things that you can grab onto throughout your journey. I think also, last night, I mentioned there was different, executive recruiters on a call through this program, our Tuesday evening webinar. And they talked a lot about, when you are applying to jobs and interviewing, being ready to tell stories. And it's a way of showing authenticity and things like that. And then I'll kind of piggyback off of Jason mentioning like finance, for example, or Linda, or what she brought up as well. I think that those things, just even with each quarter or each session or class or project that you work on along the way, that I've brought more confidence into meetings, and I'm speaking up more, asking questions, running brainstorm sessions, really trying to throw things at the wall until something sticks. Whereas before I didn't have that same level of confidence because now I have all these resources and skills and this big community and network supporting me along the way. So even though I haven't graduated yet, very much of how I navigate as a leader right now is so many pearls combined throughout the program.
And can I just say that during your program, faculty is readily available to answer any questions. So if Chelsea, for example, is working on a project at work and it doesn't have much to do with school, a specific project, she can still have the access to different faculty to say, hey, I'm working on this. What was your experience? Or where do you think I should go with this? Or what are some of the challenges you see me facing? Or I'm thinking about this challenge. Am I looking at it the right way? So you do have access to faculty for different initiatives that you're working on while you're in the program and afterwards.
I'm going to add on to that last point, Linda, but thank you for making it for me. Yeah, we truly are a community, right? And it's impressive to me how far back we span. And that students who graduated a decade ago are still in contact with our faculty and in touch with the program. And in fact, even more importantly, serve actively as mentors for our current students. And so we tend not to distinguish between the 2-degree paths. It's 2 paths, but it's to the same degree, the EMH or the MHA. And so you're entering a community of literally thousands of folks who've walked this path before you, going all the way back into the 1970s. So, and frequently we are the beneficiary of folks who've spent time at the UW before. Chelsea, I think you're a double dog. But as Jason's wardrobe may indicate, that doesn't matter where you started, you will end up a Husky.
I do have some UW artwork. It's from an Etsy artist, but it's the cherry blossoms in the square. But I need your shirt, Jason. That's looking good. And your cup, Neil. I saw that. W. There we go. Go dog.
I'm third generation Husky, so it was an easy choice for me.
Thank you for coordinating. Those of you who joined today, faculty, staff, prospective students, applicants, thank you all as well. And of course, feel free to reach out to Peyton or to any of us.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. But yeah, that is it. So we'll end the session, but thank you all as well for joining, and thanks.
Thank you.